Hello.
Hey there.
How are you? Michelle?
Doing good. How are you?
Good. It's been too long since we've done this. It's been about 2 weeks, right?
It has been, yeah.
Yeah. I've been out of town for a week, but I've been in Florida, so it's good to be back.
I was in Tennessee. You were at the beach, I was at the mountains.
That's right. That's right. And while we were gone, so much happened and so much that we're going to talk about tonight. And I love having you on because you're able to talk about the things that, we don't know a whole lot about over here. So we're going to talk about what the requirements are going to be potentially with the masks, the vaccinations, etc. As many of you know, Michelle Morrow, she is a registered nurse. And so at Education First Alliance, we like to have people stay in their lane insofar as they can do that, right? And have the medical folks talk about the medical stuff, etc. It's just a little thing we like to do here. But of course, Michelle, when you were out of town, did you hear what an amazing week that we had as far as the critical race theory bill being advanced by the Senate?
I did hear whisperings of that. I don't know all the details, but I do know that the Senate is moving in the right direction for our kids.
Yeah, they're absolutely moving in the right direction. So for those of you that were kind of on a rock last week, and I sort of was, right, because I had to go out of town. But for those of you that were under a rock, here's what happened. Senator Berger not only came out and said, hey, we need to pass this bill, right? We need to pass 324, which was in the House. We've been talking a lot about that. And shoot, I don't have my screen up. We've been talking a lot about that, but Berger came out and really, he's making this a signature of his. That's not the right one. So Berger's making this a signature issue for him, and that is stopping critical race theory in our schools. We know that we've had a very difficult time with that within our schools, within our teachers over the last, I don't know, how long have we been talking about it, Michelle?
I think since February, maybe? Did we start?
It's been since February that we've really been hammering this issue. And so, as you know, we had a little bit of a lag getting it out of the House. That came, and then we'd been kind of waiting around, if you will, twiddling our thumbs, waiting for the Senate. So I'm going to get Berger's comments up here because he had a great press conference on Thursday, and he really laid it out. He says, look, we're going to not only have a bill, I'm going to tell you what's in that 324 they added to it, right? The GOP and the Senate added to it. We're not only going to have a bill, we're looking at amending the state's constitution. Had a big press conference. I believe had two in one day. Our very own Nancy Anderson, Dr. Anderson, was there filming the whole thing, asking questions, all that. It was great. So let me we have on the screen right now Berger's comments. We can and we hopefully will pass a law to prohibit indoctrinating students while preserving the inviolable principles of freedom of thought, right? Compelled speech, when you're having kids think a certain way to perform on tests, that's compelled speech. That's what we call a Title VI violation in the court of law. A lot of lawyers looking at that right now. Children must learn about our state's racial past, absolutely, and all of its ugliness, including the cruelty and the slavery of 1898 Wilmington Massacre to the Jim Crow era. But students, here's the key, must not be forced to adopt an ideology that is separate and distinct from history, an ideology that attacks the very foundations of liberal order, that promotes present discrimination as long as it's against the right people and thus anti-racist. So for the next 12 days, Education First Alliance is going to have a series of articles, exposés, special reports, and interviews for the next 12 days. What we're trying to do is this. We want to educate everyone from the school board member to the teacher, to the parents, to clergy. We have a lot of clergy that say, hey, what is critical race theory? We're going to describe it and give them the evidence they need to make their own decisions, right, about what this is. And so I'll tell you that, Michelle, what it is, it's not a piece of paper that you learn something with. It's a movement and it is a belief system. And so what teachers are trying to do is inculcate a belief system that is, as Berger said, vastly different from the Judeo values that the country was founded on. I mean, no one likes this, save for a few idiots, and we'll get those idiots up on screen in a moment. That's going to be the fun part. So let me tell you about the bill that I like what they did here. So they took this 324. For you guys that are out there, that's the anti-critical race theory bill. Over 16 states already have it, and it's pretty basic, right? You cannot stereotype, scapegoat, or collectively punish anyone based on the color of their skin. What I love about it is this, is that it also combines the transparency bill that was laid out by, I believe it was John Torbett a few months ago.
Yeah.
It says this, is that parents have a right to inspect the curriculum, but it changes. The date on the original bill, you guys, was a year. We were like, screw that, a year? I mean, come on, that's forever. It changes it to a month. So this bill is absolutely positively strengthened. The only hiccup that we have is this. The DPI is going to oversee part of it. The part of it that's kind of important. What schools and school boards and districts will have to do from now on is say you want an anti-racist trainer, James Ford, right? He's the preeminent anti-racist trainer who sits on our state school board. So you want Mr. Ford to do your training. So you will have to send a plan for that training to the DPI, to Catherine Truitt's office, and it will need to be approved. And so now the DPI is going to be the administrator of this program. So Senator Berger's going further than that. The Senate is proposing a constitutional amendment that will, of course, if put up for a vote, it will go in 2022. That means, I think that Democrats that would normally override a veto, or maybe even the governor himself, will say, okay, nobody wants critical race theory. Nobody wants racism in school. Nobody wants a dumbing down of our society and a upheaval in school. That's going to get people out to vote, right, Michelle? What do you think about that idea?
Well, I think it's a great idea, and I think that they've actually been listening and realizing, especially from what Education First Alliance has been doing, and saying, listen, this is an issue across all political lines. This is about parents and people in the community that want to train our children to be honest, hardworking, dependable, self-responsible kids coming into society. And we don't want more divisions. And this, I think they're realizing that this is not a Republican issue. This is an American issue. This is a North Carolina citizen issue. We don't want it. There's nothing good in going and finding the absolute worst of our history and basing all of our future teaching on it. I think that it's wise in the way that he worded to say that the way that we learn from history is we have to know the bad, evil things that happened, and we also have to see what the consequences of that were, but we also need to hear the stories of people who have overcome these hardships and overcome difficulty and persecution and poverty and being pushed down, and they've become incredible members of society, and they've changed the world. And that's who we need to put in front of our children much more frequently than the people who are doing it wrong. And I think I think that maybe the General Assembly is figuring out this, when if it's going to be a constitutional amendment, they're going to have to listen to the North Carolina citizens. And when it passes with flying colors, they're going to recognize, maybe we should listen to what the people say rather than what is being told to us in our lobbyists and in our, echo chamber of the General Assembly, which is often what happens.
Well, that is right. And so right now that we're going to turn it over to the people, we're going to let the people speak. And I think that's the way to do it. And speaking of, letting the people speak, I want to show you guys what the reaction has been since Berger had his press conference. I'm going to show you a few world-class people here. All right. This guy, Justin Parmenter, I mean, he is just an insane teacher from Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system, a 7th grade English teacher, one of the NCAE Teachers Union hacks. I mean, this guy is off the charts. Here it is. Check out the demographics of the majority party that's trying to legislate how North Carolina teachers and students can discuss race and gender. 100% are white, 85% are male. What are they really worried about? First of all, I question this. Secondly, this guy is male and straight and white his damn self. So, I mean, please give me a break. And what are we really worried about? This isn't about discussing race and gender. This is about using race and gender as an absolute weapon to stereotype and to scapegoat. I mean, this is analogous to saying, oh, and Jim Crow, oh, look at the people that are complaining. They're all one color, etc. No, this is human rights issues, what we're talking about, Michelle. I'm going to show you another one here. I mean, this guy, I think I'm going to show it from this same guy. He's priceless. I'm going to show you actually a couple. He just, bless his heart, as we say in the South. Here's another one. He's going after, I think, Mark Robinson. I guess she had the right skin color. complaints to Mark Robinson indoctrination portal reveal white racial resentment is driving critical outrage theater. I hate to break it to people, but there are a lot of people of color that are damn upset about this. I'm going to have one on tomorrow with us, Aaron Alexander, our very own Aaron Alexander, who went to Durham High and had this rammed down his throat. I'm going to have another one, Terrace Todd, on Thursday. The myth that only people of color or only white people are upset about this, that's a myth, and actually it's a lie, Michelle.
It is. And I'd like to say, I mean, not only did our own Lieutenant Governor, Mark Robinson, come out of poverty, he was the 9th of 10 children born to a single mother. Right. Poverty. And I mean, he's the ultimate poster child for what the left would have said, you should end that pregnancy because it's completely an inconvenience. But beyond that, let's look at the amazing hero that we have in Clarence Henderson. If you want to talk about somebody who actually lived through the Jim Crow laws, who put his own safety and life on the line in sitting at the Woolworth counter in Greensboro, he's the only remaining young man that was there. There were 4 men who ended up being arrested for that and beaten off of their stools. And he's the one saying, this is ridiculous. We don't teach division. I mean, obviously it happens in the hearts of some people, but that's not what we teach. That's not where we've come from. And when that guy that you just had up there from Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools, when he said, what are they scared of? You know what we're scared of? We're scared of repeating the past sins of teaching our children division and teaching them to look at the color of someone's skin and to determine their character. And that is what we're fearful of. We're fearful that we are going to put that into the minds and hearts of our children, and it is going to end up, reverberating throughout the entire nation. That, sir, is what we are trying to stop.
Exactly. Well said. I mean, this is a civil rights movement again, and I've talked to Clarence a couple of times about this, and we agree. I mean, this is no different. The same people, in fact, Clarence has said this, the same people that are arguing for critical race theory may as well have white hoods on. That's exactly what he says, and I totally agree with it. So I'm going to show you how James Ford reacted. James Ford is sitting on our state school board. Really, he has driven this whole critical race theory in North Carolina public schools. I'll give him this. The man has been patient. The man has been dogged. He's been diligent. He's been at this since 2015. All under the noses of Republicans, might I add, but no more, because we're here. So. Right. Here's what he's talking about. Again, white people. The white backlash we're seeing today is a continuation of the tradition of Dr. King reference. Please give me a break, this man using Dr. Martin Luther King. I believe it has 3 stages: deflection, projection, and violence. So, in other words, if you reject critical race theory, it's going to lead to violence. This hyperbole, this is patently ridiculous. I'd say we're in stage 2 for now. The work is dangerous. Ask these sisters. So what James Ford is saying is that this is going to lead to violence against people of color. Without one scintilla of evidence, it absolutely doesn't make sense.
Well, Sloan, if we can be honest, let's see what the people of color who are conservatives have dealt with for the last 5 years. Anyone who supported President Trump, anyone who dared to come out and say, you know what, it's time for us to get off of these Democratic plantations and off of the welfare dole and being told that we can do nothing, we can never make anything of ourselves, and that the government is going to take care of everything. There's been so many that have come out and said this is ridiculous. Why are we making our heroes people that are thugs and drug lords and criminals? And yet, I mean, Candace Owens has had so many talks about this thing. Why do we elevate people that are not good role models for our children? I mean, people like, all people. I mean, George Floyd is a perfect example, which he was killed in the wrong way. And absolutely, the police need to pay the consequence for what they did. But when you look at his life and you look at what he was doing prior to being arrested and the litany of crimes that he committed, and you just go, really, that's going to be the person that you tell your children, look up to this person, when there are so many wonderful people of all different shade and color that are they're they're just incredible people, incredible citizens doing amazing things. They're CEOs of companies. They're the heads of police offices. They're heads of Intel. They are worldwide company managers. There's people that have done amazing things. Why aren't we putting those people up on a pedestal? And why are we looking at people who have been victims, and also have been victimizers as people that we should look to simply because of the color of their skin?
Well, correct. You're absolutely correct. And one thing we're going to point out this week, again, 12 days, we're going to be doing reports, exposés, showing you guys and telling you guys exactly what the problem with critical race theory is. But you pointed that out. We're paying attention to these guys, these clowns, instead of great teachers, which is 75% of all of our great teachers. Right. They're doing great things and they get to steal the show. So this is another thing from James Ford. Now, all of a sudden, the guy that says if you're colorblind, you're an absolute racist and it leads to violence. If you say that you're colorblind, you're a racist. The whole premise of what MLK stood for was that thesis. I mean, James Ford himself is a pariah on the great work and great deeds and the memory of MLK. So he misuses MLK in this way. The way Dr. King is calling y'all anti-racist, liars from beyond the grave is doing for me this morning. Sometimes the ancestors tell us everything we need to know about the present. Stop using this man's name in vain. I would say the same thing back to him. And by the way, I cannot believe that we have an absolute unabashed hater that is really in control of the policies and the direction of 1.5 million students here in North Carolina schools.
Well, I think, Sloan, what we really need to be concerned about, too, is James Ford was named as the teacher of the year. That's how he got to where he is. And we need to look at the people that the school system is putting on a pedestal as to these are the people that we want other teachers to emulate. And I think that, that needs to be brought to the forefront as well. Where are the teachers, like you say, that are teaching children to look at people and determine their character and determine whether they're kind and they're trustworthy and they're hardworking and they have similar interests? Where are those teachers that are helping the kids behind the scenes and are not pushing an agenda of division and an agenda of looking at people by their color of their skin? And I would say this, for him to say that Dr. Martin Luther King said that if you're colorblind, this is the point. We don't need to be colorblind. God made us all different shades, and he wants us to look at that and appreciate it and see the beauty that it is. That's not the point. The point is to say you look beyond the color of somebody's skin. It is impossible for us not to recognize somebody's outward appearance. I mean, but we should relish in it and find beauty in every shade that God made people. That's not the point. The point is what people are saying when they say that they're colorblind is that is not influencing their determination of how they view someone as a human being, and he's twisting it to be, you act like you can't see color, and that makes you the real racist. That's not what it is.
Well, if you're white, it makes you the real racist to James Ford. I mean, look at what he wrote about law enforcement. Law enforcement in the U.S. historically rooted in dehumanization of Black bodies, and that part cannot be reformed. It's a totally different justice system for white people. I mean, this is the guy who wrote the policies, that have us where we are today. This is the guy who did 99% of this whole social studies debacle and the policies. People have, until we have come on the scene, been absolutely terrified to confront what this hateful guy is doing. I mean, hell, his own parents have been very abusive to me personally because I've been reporting this. Yeah. And so this is total hate. And you're right. I see some people in the chat. Teachers are afraid to speak up. Absolutely. I mean, look at the hate being directed at people because of their skin color. And by the way, it's not just Black people doing it. It's mostly white people, white progressives. White progressives are driving this. So back to the bill. I mean, look, here's where we are in process. It's going to be a bill and a partner constitutional amendment, which is incredibly sweet, if you will. So there's a lot of politics. It really high stakes for the GOP. The GOP has made this their signature issue of this session, Michelle. Do you think that's wise?
I do. I think it's wise. And I think what we need to also recognize is in that bill is something that is very protective from our children and honestly for our other teachers, giving them an opportunity to rise up the ladder for good reasons rather than faulty reasons. Because if they kept all of the House Bill 324 in that bill after they went through the entire list of things that they were not going to permit, which by the way, I think everybody probably remembers that all of those 7 statements are based on the Civil Rights Act of 1964,
Right.
which I think is brilliant as well. It was brilliant that they didn't use the words critical race theory. They just took the ideology and said, we will not permit this. But in addition to that, it said, and we will not allow people who hold to those ideologies to be employed by our public school system. And so I think that everybody that right now is fighting for CRT and SEL and the 1619 projects and all of that, and has in the past, really needs to take a cold hard look at what they've been standing for, because their job should not be secure if this gets passed. And I think that in and of itself is going to root out the bad teachers and allow the great teachers to rise up into those positions of decision making. And it's going to be a complete diametrical difference in our educational system, which is what I'm praying for and hoping for.
Right. You're absolutely right. And we need to celebrate. Look, we need to bring dignity and honor back into the teaching profession. We've always said that, is that, the NCAE is total trash. I think 18% of all teachers belong to this silly union. But here's what I'm worried about in this bill. The bill puts as the administrator the DPI. That would be Catherine Truitt. So I want to get something up on the screen. Let me show you what we're looking at, and let me tell you this is going to work. So the bill spells this out. If, let's say, we go to Main Street School, right? And Main Street School decides to have an anti-racist trainer come in, okay? That school needs to put in a permission or alert the DPI that we're going to have a teacher training in 30 days. Here's what it's going to be, etc. The problem with that is this, is that we just did a FOIA request at the DPI. Our question was, we want to see the contracts that you have executed that do equity training. So we want to see all evidence of the critical race theory training at the DPI that you're doing for all teachers. They said they're going to charge us $1,500 for that information. I have been doing this job for 6 years, almost 7 years. I have FOIA'd every institution. I have never been charged a penny. This is the first time ever. So can you imagine, Michelle, you're a parent and you want to get information about what's going on in your child's school. And Catherine Truitt's DPI says, well, it's going to take 22 hours of IT personnel and then another 13 hours of administrative personnel to show you the contract, by the way, of the school and their training. They work for us. Their job, their only job is to work for us. They act like they're doing a favor. These are our records.
Right. I have this question though, because if this bill passes and it says that all curriculum needs to be submitted with 30 days, notice for parents to look at, is that also going to include special projects and special trainings and things like that? Or is it only the hard copy curriculum? Do you know if that's mentioned in the bill?
Yeah, I do. I believe it's both. So that's a separate issue. Number one, let's say you've got a particular curriculum and for your 3rd grade, and they need to put that and give you, I believe, a 30-day runtime, right? Right. That's number one. So that's going to happen. Number two is that if a school wants to do a training, I believe they are to give 30-day notice. Please don't quote me on the time, but they are to let the DPI know that they're going to be doing that training. Now, again, given that Catherine Truitt's DPI is going to charge people, citizens, that want an open government, they're going to be charging. This is a big problem with this bill.
Well, and I think maybe we need to go to our legislators and make sure that it's specifically stated in there, and no citizen can be charged for this information. I mean, maybe they just need to put that in to the amendment of the bill, as well as I have this question. I understand that the DPI is going to oversee that, but who's overseeing the DPI?
That's the problem. That's the problem, is that we're in this circle now. I mean, the DPI, I've come down hard on Catherine Truitt and the DPI because they're doing critical race theory teacher training, and they're getting federal money to do that. And so they're lying. I'm very hesitant to say lying, but at this juncture, they are lying to the public, right? And saying, oh, no, we're not doing it. And when we go to look, we get a $1,500 bill. When we find evidence of it, we get a $1,500 bill. And as we know, and I want to point out again, our top deputy, his wife is a critical race theory lobbyist. All right. So when you've got that going on, but I digress. So anyway, we come here for that. We come here for to talk about the bit of problems that we're having. But really, I'm very interested in talking to you about the issue that all parents care about. Year-round school started today. But a lot of parents, we're worried about masks. We're worried about vaccinations. I know that you got kicked off of Facebook yesterday, right, for talking about that. But we're going to talk about it today and go as long as we can. We're on YouTube and we're on Facebook. So hopefully that's right. And so tell me, where are we? Has the Senate done anything to make sure that schools are not going to vaccinate children without parental consent or notification? That's a problem. What have they done?
No, sadly, I don't see anything yet as a bill. And like I said, I was out of town last week, so I am not up to date if there's been anything since the week before last that is specifically targeting vaccine passports or the necessity for children to be vaccinated in order to participate in school. We do know that they are continuing the mask mandate for children. And I just want everybody to know that that is not only unethical, it's not only unlawful, it also has absolutely no basis in scientific fact. That you cannot go the world over and find any cases. I mean, the scientific number for the data of children who have either been spreading COVID-19 or who have been impacted in a harmful way, having to be hospitalized or dying from it, the statistical number is 0 across the world. This is ridiculous. And I want to say that it not only that, but now what's happening is I listened to a really great talk yesterday by Beatrice Spetnik, who has spent her life, she was trained in Canada, but has spent her life doing clinical trials on vaccines and different medications. And she was talking about the code of ethics that have been violated specifically here in North Carolina. And I wanted to say that from a school point of view, this is the thing that is concerning. I don't know if everybody saw the new A Shot for $1 million. And that came out, I think it was the Executive Order 219 that Governor Cooper said, if you go and willingly get this shot, your name will be placed into, if you're 18 and over, your name will be placed into a sweepstakes to win potentially $1 million. Okay. Well, it's gotten worse than that when we're looking at school-aged children. Because as soon as they gave the emergency use authorization for 12 to 17-year-olds, they came out with something that said, if you go and get the shot, and you can go look this up on the DHHS website, and it has Mandy Cohen quoted on this saying that that anyone between the ages of 12 and 17 that willingly goes and gets the jab, they will automatically be entered into a $125,000 scholarship sweepstake. Okay, and on the website, if you go to the site in different colored letters, I believe it's red and the rest of the text is black or blue, says, and you do not need your parents' permission to participate in this. And this is why this is, okay, not only is that an absolute breach of parental rights to tell children from 12 to 17 who are minors, who are on their parents' insurance, who are completely dependent on their parents for everything that they have, to tell them that you can come and get this shot and you might win $125,000. But also this is why it's wrong, because when you go to the lawful use of an emergency use authorization, it specifically states, this is federal law. This is not anything in North Carolina. This is not anything that we're making up as conservatives. The federal law to use an emergency use authorization says that there shall be no incentivizing and no coercion. So coercion is the negative. Coercion is saying, if you don't do this, this will happen to you. And I say Duke University was the first university to coerce their students into taking the jab. How did they do that? They were the first ones that I know of. Maybe someone else did earlier in North Carolina, but as far as I know, they were the first university 2 months ago to say no student can return to the classroom at Duke University unless you have had the inoculation. Okay, so this is the problem. That is coercion, because this is still a clinical trial. This has not been approved by the FDA. This has been authorized only for emergency use. The other problem with this, Sloan, is that when it says whether we're going to have an emergency use authorization for any medication, it says the only time you can have an EUA is when there are no other options to treat a disease.
Okay. All right. So I want to pop in here and tell you this. And so actually, I have the map of Israel. I just got this beautiful necklace. So it's kind of coincidental. We're talking about what's going on in Israel. And in Israel, they've got absolutely draconian laws about the shutdowns, the vaccinations. And the point is this, is that Israel has been, doggedly pursuing inoculating young people against COVID. And so there has been a massive amount of young men, I want to say age 12 to 18, with heart inflammation. So Israel is a good place to test this, right? I mean, they are crazy about doing this, etc. And so we know there. It's been less here in the U.S. They use Israel because of their policy. But look, you've got. I heard there's a lawsuit today to unveil the fact that there's 46,000 injuries from these. I won't call them a vaccination, right? It's called a drug.
But Sloan, the problem is those are only the ones that are reported. Those are the ones that have been reported to VAERS, which is the Vaccine Adverse Effect reporting system. Okay, those are only the ones that have been reported. What about all of them that haven't been reported? And this is the point. People from 12 to 17, people below 70 years old, people that do not have pre-existing conditions, have not had anything more than cold symptoms and felt bad for a week or so, or lost their sense of smell for a month. This is absolutely ridiculous to put. And this is the other thing that's a problem, is as part of the emergency use authorization, the code of ethics, these people must report before anyone participates in this. They must report and sign that they understand the risks, the potential risks, and the potential benefits. And there is nothing that is happening. If you're going into Walmart and getting this shot in your arm, they are not giving you anything to sign to acknowledge that you are taking part in a medical experiment.
Right. So when we're talking about schools and we're relegating it to schools, it becomes particularly problematic because, look, we're talking about eroding. We're talking about two things, right? We're talking about the danger of actually taking the inoculation. That's number one.
Excuse me, I got to plug in my phone.
Yeah. Number two is the removal of parental rights. And so when we're talking about parental rights going out the window, that's another thing that we've talked about with critical race theory, because, of course, these surveys, right, are being given, the surveys that are being put with critical race theory without parental knowledge or consent. And so these surveys are another extension of that, because all they have to do, Michelle, on these surveys that are given at the DPI level, a district level, all they have to do is add a question: have you been vaccinated? Yes or no. Kid answers no. And what do you think is going to happen?
Right. Well, and this is the other problem, too. If you look at the DPI and you look at their plans for the future, the DHHS, of which Mandy Cohen is completely in charge of, is all intermingled into the DPI website. At least it was, back a couple of months ago. And so, but here's the problem, too. As part of this emergency use authorization, you know what it says? It says any statement that claims the test articles, in other words, what you're using to put in your body, is safe or effective, are prohibited. If you go to the DHHS website, she says, it's a quote from her saying that this shot has been proven safe and effective. So many millions of people have taken it. Come on and do your part. That is an absolute breach of it's a violation of the regulation, of the codes, of the ethics of the emergency use authorization, of which this vaccine or this shot is under the EUA. Every turn there is just ethics violations, civil rights violations, medical violations, malpractice issues, parental violations. it's an absolute storm of
Right.
illegality. And,
Well,
and who's the victim? Who's the victim? Our children.
Well, children always are the victim. But look, you've got something called qualified immunity, guys. I want to tell you about qualified immunity in school, and we're not very clear. Qualified immunity is that most things that happen in schools, you can't sue them for. You really can't. You think you can't, you really can't. And so I'm showing you this this framework. It's in the North Carolina DPI and the HHS combined. It's called the multi-tier support system framework. This is just what I'm showing you just for behavioral health. And this says that, this is very tiny, that it's multi-tier framework which promotes school improvement through engaging research-based academic and behavioral practices. It employs systems approach to data-driven problem solving and growth for all. Data-driven, I'll say. And so they're able to, as you said, they're partnering in there. They're actually going in there. They're starting what are de facto mental health clinics inside of the school. Now, our grades are in the toilet, right? People are fussing, fighting over race, and they are treating people in a health capacity. Now, Catherine Truitt's first in line deputy, also a Republican, which she holds up quite often. His name is Jamie Falkenberry. His wife is a lobbyist for one of these behavioral health companies that goes in to treat students. Now, that's not in and of itself bad, but it's without parental consent and notification.
That's right.
Sometimes that's a bad thing. Number one. Number two, we cannot have a lobbyist inside of the DPI. We cannot have a lobbyist that's pushing critical race theory and mental health clinics in the schools. We can't do that because then you question, is the DPI working at the will of the people or to make money for lobbyists and give kickbacks to friends? That's what it looks like to us now. And we're talking about vaccinations and we're talking about kickbacks there.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I mean, the money to be had at every stage of this for forcing more people to get this jab is, I mean, it will blow people's mind if they know how much money is involved in every stage of this for people to push this. But the other thing that we need to talk about, when you just put that up with the multi-tiered system of support, their determination of what is good behavior is very different. It's not about their good grades and learning to read and learning to, and share well with others. It is about, are you conforming to our ideology? Or are you rebellious? And that's the problem.
Let me put this up here. So we've got this teacher, right? Okay. This teacher hates definitely conservatives, without a doubt. Looks like he hates white males. He's a self-hating guy. So let's just say that he pulls a student out, right? A white kid that's a seventh grader, and says, "Hey, this kid needs to be treated for I don't know what, a defiant disorder or whatever," and then recommends. By the way, these treatments can be done via Zoom inside of the schools without parental knowledge or consent. The age of consent in North Carolina for medical care is 0. So you can see that white students could be put on antipsychotics or gender medication or whatever it is, and black students. Look, racism cuts both ways. So you could have a white teacher that does this to black children. My point is this: we have no trust in teachers anymore because they talk like this. Many of them talk like this. And when you say that it's at the discretion of teachers, Michelle, as to whether these kids get vaccinated or treated for mental health disorders, Houston, we have a big ass problem.
And here's the thing. I mean, you probably have hundreds of teachers that have come to you and they have been treated for their bad behavior, because when they are speaking out against this, that's considered bad behavior. And they are not given, they're not given the job that they want. They're not given the raise. They're not given the bonus. They're not put up for Teacher of the Year or whatever it might be, because they're not towing the political line. And this is the problem. Politics has completely taken over our public school system. And also, if we really look at this and we look at the history of how our schools have been used to teach our children, not just that you're not responsible for yourself, but to look at the answer. It's not about self-regulation. It's about, you need a medication.
Well, and let me put this I want to put this up. So let's talk to Sydney. Bloodmobiles have been in high schools with needles for years. This is absurd, Sydney. I'm sorry. It's totally absurd. It may be with parental consent or permission, and I believe that parental consent needs to be given, but this is absurd. We're talking about vaccinating. We're talking about, if you will, on its most simplistic level, introduce something into the bloodstream and not taking it out, right, Michelle?
Right. Yes. And here's the thing. I mean, I even think with that, you should definitely have to have your parents' consent in order to be able to go and give blood, because a lot of kids don't really know their medical history, right? I mean, who knows if they have some type of a bleeding disorder that runs in their family? Who knows, if they have anemia or whatever it might be. But the point is, like, is perfect what you said. It's not about what they're taking out, it's about what they're putting in. And quite frankly, I think we need to also know, when we're looking for FOIA's information, it was stated, I think about a month ago, that it was Duke Medical Center that was going to be providing the doctors via teleconferences in the schools in order to determine whether children needed to be helped with their emotional strain that had happened with COVID. Well, I say this is exactly what every communist country has done when they have they cause the problem, and then they try to sweep in and act like they're going to be the ones that answer it. The reason why our children are emotionally scarred from the last year is because you've told them that they can't be with their friends, they can't participate in any of the activities that they enjoy. You put them back into school and they can't look at people's faces and be able to understand what people are saying or what they're thinking. They're not learning when they're young how to, take the nonverbal cues from people, because people's faces are covered up. And now they're being treated like they have the plague and that they're lepers, and that the teacher's health is above all and in all. It's whatever is best for the teachers, and you guys are little germ carriers, and you need to stay away from me, and you need to keep that mask on.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. This whole thing has been, look, it's about demonizing. It is about demonizing, and they'll do it 100%. Okay, Sydney, you're getting a lot of love tonight because you're bringing up some points. You may be mad on the last one, but I gotta love you on this one. Yeah, this children are racist from 3 months up. I've got to tell you guys, I'm jumping the gun here. We're reporting on anti-racist preschools here in North Carolina, ones that are teaching anti-racism. One of them we need to get on our radar. It's called a Waterford Upstart, and the government, our state, pays for this particular preschool. Let me show you what they use as their thesis. It's actually kind of wild. Let me see if I can get it up here. Hang on. Okay. So it's teaching, I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's teaching that kids are racist by 2 years old. And you need to intervene. Parents and teachers need to intervene to prevent kids from absolutely being too far gone in their racism. Totally and completely a lie. But this is called Waterford Upstart. We're going to be talking a lot about that. Not to beat a dead horse, but Jamie Falkenberry, who is in Catherine Truitt's office, his wife is the lobbyist for Waterford Upstart. I don't know if you can see it, but it says, the American Academy of Pediatrics states that children as young as 6 months old can notice race-based differences, and they can internalize racial bias by the age of 2. Now, cherry-picking data, that's what they did. And, discriminating shapes and colors, etc. Yes, children do that. But these turkeys are making it sound like kids are racist and they need our help. And that is just, what do you think of that? That's absurd to me.
Well, it's absolutely absurd for this reason. I mean, children are going to be, naturally, children are drawn to their parents and people who look like their parents, because that is what brings them safety and comfort. So it's not a matter of rejecting somebody because you don't like them or you don't like the color of their skin. It's what is known to them. So if children are in a multiracial environment growing up, you're not going to be able to tell that. But I can guarantee you, when kids have a when kids get, at about 10 months old, when they start with stranger anxiety, gosh, they don't even want to go to their dad oftentimes when they come home from work, because they're afraid that their mom's going to leave the house. You see what I'm saying? Leave the room. Yeah. What is boggling my mind is, I'm just wondering, can anyone remember life in the United States 6 years ago? Like, does anybody remember? I got an idea. How about even a year and a half ago? Last January. But before COVID ever happened, do you remember when we had the lowest unemployment for all spectrum of people in the entire nation? That people were making more money across every socioeconomic platform in the entire United States of America. There was no tension. The only tension at that point was people that hated Donald Trump and loved Donald Trump. That's all that there was a year and a half ago. And now all of a sudden we're expected to believe that everything that we've lived for our entire lives was really a lie, that everything was just under the surface and there was all this intense hatred. Who goes to the store and does not see people of all different shades and colors and sizes and cultures in a store? And do you feel this do you feel unsafe? Do you feel this hatred for them? Do you feel this is ridiculous? They are putting things into children because the kids can't speak up for themselves. What 3-month-old did they interview to find out whether they choose a white person or a black person?
The whole thing's absolutely insane. And listen, critical race theory is a belief system. It is two things. It's a movement and a belief system. It's not a piece of paper. I don't want to hear this BS is from law school. I can tell you exactly where it's from. We're going to go into that during the week. But again, it is a belief system, because look, all politics is a belief system. Difference in values in a belief system. So they're trying to inculcate that.
But I don't think the belief system even existed.
Oh no,
2 years ago. And that's the thing. When you look at a belief system, a system takes time in order to actually take hold. This is an indoctrination. This is pushing your desires for there to be an intense racial divide in this nation.
Oh, yes.
You're pushing it into that. I don't think that the majority of people that are even being told to teach this or told to push this, and they're getting money for it, I don't even think they truly believe it. I think they believe in the end goal of socialism. Yeah. And they're told that this is the necessary step to get there.
Well, several of these people are married to white people.
Right.
So they're biracial. Yeah. I mean, if you look at, the vice president, she's married to a white guy. And so if they really believe that white people were the devil and white people wanted to hold them down and all that,
by the way, she's the vice president.
Yeah.
How did we keep her from getting to the second highest office in the entire nation and being a black woman? And she expects us to believe that she's a victim of systemic racism?
Yeah, no, the whole thing's preposterous. We know it's preposterous. Look, the thing that's been keeping it at bay for a long time, the firewall, if you will, is people were afraid to be called racist. That has come off. So the mask is off. And now you see the pure panic. You saw it with the Justin Parmenter jackass. You saw it with James Ford. It's white people panicking. I'm going to put that up in just a second again. This is, they're in complete and full and total panic. Here's this dude again. The right skin color, when you complain to Mark Robinson. See, Mark Robinson definitely throws a monkey wrench into the works. And that's what they're over rotating on this white people are complaining thing. They're over rotating on it.
I see some brown skinned people in there saying that they don't. I mean, you know what I'm really hoping that all of the minorities in North Carolina and beyond are going to see this for what it is they are being put into one homogenous group, which is exactly what racism is. Racism is saying that all people that look like this, think like this, act like this, and believe like this. And they're saying that even about Black people. Like, are you really saying that Blacks and Hispanics and Asians, that they don't care about that they don't care about critical race theory, that they don't care about how their kids are being taught. This is only the white people that are concerned about this. I would be offended.
No,
I
no,
would be very offended.
yeah. I mean, look, people of color want a best in flight education for their
That's
children.
right.
They know they're not getting it with this. They know this is a bunch of bull. They know that personal responsibility and good manners is a traditional value. So what critical race theory has done and say, oh, only white people had those values. It is a universal value here. And I want to show this again. And this is dangerous hyperbole here. This is from the guy who really runs the show at the Board of Education. People have been terrified of them until we came along. We're not afraid of James Ford. He's a bully and he's nuts. He writes, the white backlash we're seeing today is a continuation of the tradition of the Dr. MLK referenced. It is not. It is absolutely not. This man wouldn't know the values of MLK if it stood up in his soup. He wouldn't recognize it at all. Here's the dangerous part. I believe there are 3 stages: deflection, projection, and violence. So he's saying that next white people are going to get violent. I'm sorry. What about Black Lives Matter? What about Black Lives Matter protests? Because I saw a heck of a lot of violence there. Let's be even-handed here.
Or they're telling us what the next stage is for us to expect, because we can totally see that they've had deflection and projection, and because they've been failing at educating our children. You had that slide up the last time I was on showing the absolute, plummeting of our, of math scores and reading scores and science scores. And all of that happened as soon as Common Core came in. And when you look at that, what they're deflecting is they're saying, no, we're not failing your students. This is all because of white people. This is all because of the racism. Your kids can't get ahead because the white people are keeping them down. No, my friend, they can't get ahead because you're spending so much time and money trying to convince them that they are either oppressors or they are victims, and that you are trying to convince them that there's 69 different genders, and you're trying to convince them that their parents don't know what they're talking about, and you need to look to the school to be your community. And you're telling them the United States is filled with hatred, and it was based on hatred and a desire to kill people that didn't look like you. They're doing all of this, and that's why the scores are plummeting, because they're not teaching kids how to read. They're not teaching them how to write. They're not teaching them how to speak up and to ask hard questions, because they want conformity. They want to just create political pundits, and they want control. They want to push the families, and they want to push the church, and they want to push all other moral compasses out of these children's lives, and they want to do it earlier and earlier. So they're deflecting from their failures as educators onto this nonsense, and they are projecting it to say, and it's never going to get better until we do it this way. No, you know what? We've allowed you to do it the wrong way for the last 10 years. It's time for you to get out of the way and for us to go back to what worked for almost 200 years in the United States of America. And that's teaching kids that about a creator, and that they were made with a purpose, and teaching them how to read and write and do math so that they can go and do and learn whatever they want to learn.
100%. So what you're talking about, and this is atrocious. So check this out. This is North Carolina, 3rd to 8th grade reading and math. Okay. So you'll see where this gold star is right here. This is about when Common Core was voted on. And of course about here where I've got the cursor. Okay, so that 2011 is when it started, and then look at the scores for all races plummeted. But what Common Core did, what the left wing points out that I agree with 100%, is Common Core made the racial gap even greater, because it did. First of all, it just didn't make any sense, and so everyone. And actually, socioeconomic disadvantaged students too. Everyone needed a damn tutor to figure out the math, right? And so that's a lot of the problem in constant testing. There are a lot of students that do not do well on tests, but have a great GPA. So it did not account for that. The point is this red star, that's 2019. We are in the crapper, you guys. And this is how students of color are doing. We need to quit talking about this critical race theory, because students of color right here on the bottom rung, that is a sin. We cannot allow that to happen, and we need real solutions to fix that. What they're proposing, blame it on the white person, that ain't going to cut it. So this red star you see, that is when North Carolina ushered in, or about when they voted in social emotional learning, which we know is critical race theory. So people think, wow, this just started all of a sudden after the pandemic. It most certainly did not. Rumblings of this started in 2015. We'll be marching that out, but I'll tell you, 2019 came in the new Common Core. That is social emotional learning. That is your critical race theory. We need to watch for that. We're going to continually educate. But look, I'm going to put this up again. Hold on. Let me see. We have a crisis. Can everybody raise your virtual hand in agreement?
Yeah.
To fix the problem. And I got to tell you, people say, well, what's your solution? I don't know. Back here in
solution.
Back here in 2008, whatever the hell that we're doing then, how about going back to that?
I have a solution. And let me tell you, the first thing that we needed to be doing when we're getting those FOIA requests, we need to find out there is so much money that is spent on the administrators in North Carolina. The amount of money that they're getting, the amount of money that we're giving to these other people to create these trainings, to go through curriculums and to rewrite things so that they are critically that they are culturally sensitive and all this nonsense. This is costing us tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars a year.
Let's pay our teachers more.
That's right. Pay the teachers. Yes. Pay the teachers. Get stinking textbooks back in the classrooms for kids that are in elementary school and middle school. Take these screens out from their faces. Allow them to be outside and play and do things like art and music and theater and PE. And then maybe you will have kids actually enjoying their childhood, and they won't have social emotional issues because they're actually allowed to be kids, and you're not talking to them about people's sexual perversions and their, all of their demons that they have in them that they're pushing on 5 and 6 year olds that don't even have the capacity to understand any of that. And then I say, use the money for that. And you know what we need to do? We need to start making sure that that elementary school is focused on reading and writing and math and special. That's it.
So fifth grade.
If you every week, if you want to do something that's a lab, that's a little science thing, if you want to talk about if there's something that happened that week in history and you want to talk about it with the kids, great. But if anyone knows how to read or write and do math, you can learn anything if you know those basics. And we are failing our children because we are putting things on them that they are not emotionally, psychologically, or intellectually able to handle.
Toya is right on this. We've always said that. We were able to cut the staff of the DPI by 90%. All these administrators are making $80,000 to $100,000 a year. We need to give our teachers a bigger signing bonus, not a one-time raise. It needs to be ongoing. I think we need merit. We need to bring merit pay back at the source, and that would be to the teachers. And so, look, the equity department, by the way, doesn't do jack diddly. $400,000 a year. $400,000 a year. And why are they bringing it? And again, bringing in psychologists to all the schools and expecting, and at the same time, expecting the teachers to do their job and psychology at the same time. It doesn't make
sense. So you know, I can guarantee you that these doctors that are doing teleconferences in the schools, they aren't doing it for free. And if you want to know how much it's going to cost for doctors to be on for 10 minutes with the kids, we're all paying for that. And how about the fact that we're paying everybody's lunch for the next year? Every person in public school is going to get a free lunch. Why? Why?
Not correct. And that's another thing that we're bringing up. Look, we need to do a better job of our lunch program for sure. And then, and I'm just talking about school choice. We need to provide these charters and school choices with, transportation and with lunches. That's very important across the board. Absolutely. But giving it to everyone and people that don't even need it, what the hell? And again, that money needs to go to the teacher. That needs to go to the teacher supplies. We constantly hear about teachers getting in and saying, hey, I don't have any supplies. I have to buy my own. That is unnecessary. We should not do that. We should have all of this money going. I mean, you're right. It's being lit on fire.
And I'm sorry, I was just at a store today, and I was at 2 stores today, and at each store they asked me, do you want to give money to the classrooms in in North Carolina? And I thought to myself, I'm already paying taxes out the wazoo to go into the classrooms in North Carolina. And it's time for us to expect that money is going to the students. not to all of these other people that have nothing to do with helping our kids to be ready for an adult life.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And so Peter points out here, Kendi got half his paycheck for 45 minutes. I think it's what, 25 grand or something like that. Yeah, for 45 minutes. That would have been a nice a bonus, right? A holiday bonus for teachers.
Well,
bring that back.
Does everybody know that Mrs. Moore, who is the superintendent just of Wake County Schools, makes $300,000 a year?
Wow.
$300,000 a year.
Yeah. No,
to do what?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this whole policy, I mean, I know we're kind of migrating, we're getting all over the board, but I mean, I think the fundamentals is, look, when it comes to the teachers are being indoctrinated also. They're having to force themselves to say, yes, I'm a racist, and force themselves to do this training. They're also having to have more responsibility. That is, learn how to do the SEL, do psychological surveys, do all these things. So a lot is being heaped on them for no extra money. And then a lot of this other excess money on these lunches you talked about, hell, on even the vaccinations, on the things that parents should be able to do for themselves, for their children, the money's been lit on fire. So the money, we really want the money to be reappropriated, to your point, to go to the student. The DPI, they had a complete clown show, and we all saw it. It was on display when they were doing the social studies process, where, you know, part of the stuff they put out, Michelle, was plagiarized, etc. Those people, it took a group of 10 of them. They'd make $112,000 a year or so to do it, and they got nothing.
Right.
We need workers. We need people doing the stuff.
Yep. We need a lot more people hands-on with our students, actually sitting with them, teaching them how to read, and helping them to know what they want to do with their lives, than all of these people that are just, you know, stuffed shirts, getting paid six figures to manipulate our children to believe lies about themselves and about this country. Yeah,
no, absolutely. So, and as for the vaccinations and the masks, I think what we're saying is stay tuned. I mean, this is obviously, this is a power struggle. We know that North Carolina is the epicenter of it. We know that North Carolina is one of the only states that has people knocking apparently and going door to door that have a voter registration T-shirt on, and they want to vaccinate you.
Yeah, well, you know what my suggestion is, everybody, if they come to your door, go with your camera on and rolling and say, hi, before I answer any of your questions, I'd like to know your first and last name, your address, and the last four of your social security number, and have somebody writing it down, because they know that about you when they're showing up to your door. Why shouldn't you know that about them before you answer any questions that they have? And then you say, you know what? I don't really want to give you any of my health information, so have a nice day. Because that's the reality of what's happening. These people don't understand. They are getting a paycheck to do something, and they do not know that what they're doing is absolutely a violation of our civil rights.
Yeah, Michelle, I think that really someone coming to your door with Marxism is a metaphor for what we're talking about, right? Because they've got your kids.
That's right.
They've got your kids. And so the metaphor for what we're talking about with Marxism is, it is at our door in the schools, at our real door, waiting to inculcate you or inoculate you. And look, the time to fight is now.
Yes.
Now.
And I would say anybody that's in Wake County, come to the Wake County School Board meeting tomorrow. It starts at 5:30. It's on, I can't remember the number, but it's on Dillard Drive, right behind Crossroads Shopping Center, kind of to the side of Crossroads Shopping Center.
What time is it again? Tell us what time.
It's at 5:30 tomorrow night.
Okay.
Tuesday night, July 20th. And so even if you can't get in, there's only like 100 seats inside. But if we could be outside and show up by the thousands and say, we want the masks off of our kids, we want for nobody to be vaccinated without parental consent, and we want for our curriculum to not have any SEL or any CRT in it.
That's right.
I think that's going to be powerful.
That's right. And so I'll tell you, I've got people from Hartnett County on here. I've got people from Buncombe and from Mecklenburg. Find out when your meeting's going to be. Make yourself seen. Make yourself known. But we've been here for more than an hour, so we're going to let you guys go. Michelle, every time we're on, it's always awesome, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking.
Because we don't have opinions. That's what makes it.
I know. We need to get better about that.
We go with the flow. Yeah,
Right.
we go with, in Davie County as well.
Awesome.
Stand up and be counted. But listen, every single day, I want to pump this out again. Every single day for 12 days, we're going to have an expose, report, etc. We have a report up today. We were the first to talk about the Black Lives Matter curriculum in the classroom. A year ago today, we're on Glenn Beck. I write for the Federalist. That came out. What we really didn't realize is it's critical race theory. So we were the first to point that out. And boy, were we wrong. We thought it'd be a passing fad. And so we're going to be talking about tomorrow. We're going to be talking to Aaron Alexander from Blexit about what Black students think about critical race theory and how it's harming Black students. So that's 8 p.m. tomorrow night. We're going to have that. And then we're going to have articles up which have clear-cut examples of critical race theory and what it's doing to our schools.
Awesome.
So tune in, and thank you again tonight. We had it at 9 o'clock, tomorrow at 8 o'clock. So don't miss us. We're going to have it on the YouTube and Facebook platform. All right. Good night, guys. Good night, Michelle.
Good night.